Hi guys, today we're going to discuss some things that we use to help us in our research when looking at photographs. The first thing I want to talk about is actually a book that I purchased. It's one of the better books. It's called Photo Detectives, and it's by Maureen A. Taylor. And this is an excellent book if you ever have the money to spare to purchase it. It goes over all different types of things to look at when trying to identify the age of a photo. So the first couple of questions that we need to ask when we're looking at our photos are, when was the photo taken? That's your number one. When was the photo taken? Number two is going to be, where was the photo taken? And number three should be, are there any identifying marks or unusual things in the photo that would help us identify the timeline of when that photo was taken? We never want to overlook our key resources, which is going to be family members, who can either tell you who the photo is of or when the photo may have been taken. We don't always use when they say it was taken, as that can vary and it can change over time. So, with that being said, let's start looking at some of these photos. Okay, and we'll discuss why I chose these photos as an example. In this particular photo, it is a African-American gentleman, but he has a very unusual hat on. So in this picture, we would look at that hat and try to identify when this hat was popular. He also has a very unusual tie. Ties are something that men have changed over the years, the thickness, the type, and even whether it was a bow tie or not. So that is something that we would look at to try to determine the age of when a photo was taken. I'm going to close these as we go through them. That's not the one I wanted. This one right here is called what they call a cabinet card. It's also called cardstock photos. And then these type of photos, there's usually some type of identification here at the bottom. It's usually the studio of where the photo was taken. And these type of things, you can actually tell when the photo was taken based on things like the color of the photo, whether it has square corners or round corners and things like that. So these are very unusual, and I love these. I love to see these. They're always very beautiful. But these are cardstock photos. All right, another thing is glasses. Glasses have progressed over time. So when you see a really thin framed glass like this, it's going to be a key indicator of when the photo was taken. So we're going to close this one. With women, we look at several things. We look at the hairstyles that they were wearing in the photo, as that's usually a good indicator of when the photo was taken. And another thing is that we look at is their clothing. Usually the height of the collar is a good indicator of when a photo was taken. This particular photo, with her hair being pulled up and everything, and the collar being as high as it is, I would say that this photo is probably taken around the 1900s. All right, and this photo. Again, we're going to look at her clothing and her hairstyle. And in this particular photo, I also want you to notice that she's got a cigarette in her mouth. That's not something that was really done before the 20s. It wasn't very popular to show women smoking. So based on her hairstyle and her clothes, that this would definitely be a photo of the 20s. So this is another men's photo, but I want you to look at the tie he's wearing. It's very unusual and very unique. So we would use that and his hairstyle as a way to determine, and even this collar here, a way to determine when this photo was taken. If we can determine when the photo was taken, it would also help us determine what colors and palettes that we should use to recolor this image. Also notice that he's got his hand tucked inside of his vest here. All right, here we have a drummer boy in a military uniform. He looks to be fairly young, and I actually have a few of these, so I'm going to kind of flip through these. Here's one that's been a little tinted. I think I may have one more. No. All right, so these will help us determine where these were taken. First of all, the things that we're going to look at is the type of uniform that they're wearing. So I'm going to kind of flip back and forth. This particular young man is an African-American man, or an African-American boy. Boys predominantly don't usually fight in wars. We do know that young men fought during the Civil War. And with him being a colored gentleman, normally he would fight for the Union. We didn't have there were some troops that were African-American that fought for the Confederacy, but predominantly they were in the Union. And you will also find that a lot of times the Confederate armies, they didn't dress as well. They didn't have, their uniforms weren't consistent throughout the war. They changed quite a bit based on availability and what they had. All right, here we have a gentleman that's wearing a bow tie. And notice the collar here is a lot different from the one that we previously saw. He's got a clean haircut, and he's clean shaven. And those are indicators of what we should be looking for. Also, the collar on their suits is a good indicator usually of a timeline, and whether the shirt underneath is plain or ruffled. A pocket watch. Sometimes you will see these in photos, and the way that they're attached is usually a good indicator. They usually have the longer lapels here, but look how thick the tie is that this gentleman is wearing. It's not your normal tie that you would see today, for example. Okay, he's also got a little bit of a burly beard. That's also something that we saw around the Civil War and such. They weren't so much worried about being clean cut. But these type of indicators are also ways for you to determine when a photo was taken. All right, here we have a woman in uniform. And it looks like she is a cadet nurse. So the things that we would look at on a military uniform, let's just discuss that right quick. All right, let me see. The first thing we're going to look at, and I'm just going to create a new layer here so I can kind of point this out a little better. All right, the first things that we're going to look at are going to be insignias on the hats, any patches that they might be wearing. We want to look at shoulder bars, and we want to look at cut and any pins that they might be wearing. The color of the shirt underneath varies sometimes with uniforms. It can be the same uniform and have two people wear it different ways. But for the most part nowadays, we're very uniform in how we wear uniforms. They all have a code on how they have to be worn. So these are things that we would look at to help identify this photo. We would look up things like cadet nurse and things like this, that would a women's cadet nurse, things like that. Another thing that we're going to look at, and this is going to go on the research side, if you have an idea of what you are looking for, it is very easy to do a Google search to kind of get some images. We're going to look up women's clothing from 1900. Well, let's do 1800. I'm going to look at images, but you can look at the fashion timeline. Let me go back real quick. There's a fashion timeline here. And it will go through. A lot of this is reading, but it does go through the different styles of clothes. It gives you an image, kind of what you're looking at, and how they dress during that time period. You'll also see things like accessories and stuff like that. And sometimes accessories are very important in helping us in our research to determine when a certain style was popular. But something such as this that shows you the flow or the outline silhouette of an outfit for women and how it changed over the years can really be helpful. And something even a little more detailed. We'll go and see some of these changed like in odd years, like 1893 to 1896. There was a significant change here. or 1900 to 1904. It didn't always change every 10 years or every 5 years. It just kind of changed as the women progressed and the fashions come out. But there are lots of different charts that will kind of help you to see different fashion, and they even have them in different parts of the world. And sometimes that's what we have to look at. We have to look at different parts of the world to determine when something might have been popular. There are several videos on YouTube that I think they're called like 100 Years of Fashion. Let me look at this and we'll pull it up and I will show you. 100. Let me go to YouTube. And I like watching the 100 Years of Fashion videos. Fashion. And they do a girls and a guys. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it kind of shows you. I'll just kind of skip through it. They show you the years and different styles that they wore during those times. So even YouTube and places like that can be a very good resource for you. If you do happen to purchase the book that I have, the Photo Detective book, it's got lots of resources and things like that in the back and tells you where to go and how to research your photos in the best possible ways, and it even shows you how to keep them organized. But there are lots of different books that will help you determine age of images. And you can look things up like women's clothing in 1920. And you can go to these websites and they will show you, and this one's actually a really good one. It's got ones of the 1900s, and it's got hairstyles and fashion and even makeup. And it's got for the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And so it's even got fashions during the war. There are a lot of different things that you can look at that will help you. And it kind of goes over what was popular at the time and the colors that were popular at the time and, you know, what was important at the time. The type of accessories that they wore, if they wore hose or if they didn't wear hose, and the length of the hem. All of these things are important, not just in our military photos, but in every photo that we do. So don't spare on the research. The research is going to help your photos look amazing. If you will take the time to research what you're coloring, you will be impressed with everything that you color. So I hope this helped. If anybody has any questions or they need some help with anything, feel free to let me know. Thanks.